What if a podcast wasn't meant to keep you hooked, but to actually help you let go? Today, we're diving into a show with a really unusual goal: to help you fall asleep. And get this, it doesn't do it by being boring. It works by being just interesting enough to quiet your mind.
And this quote from the host, man, it just nails the whole idea, doesn't it? It's not about escaping the chaos of life to find sleep. It's about finding the peace to sleep right in the middle of it. I mean, that's a pretty deep mission for a podcast, right?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the show's core idea. Then, we'll get into its super unique creative process, check out the wild stories that come from it, the deep human truths it uncovers, and finally, we'll land on the comforting philosophy at its heart.
Okay, Section 1, a lullaby for a chaotic world. So, let's get right into it. How in the world do you make a podcast that's designed to put people to sleep?
And here it is. This is the secret sauce. The whole goal is to exist right on that razor's edge between interesting and, uninteresting. Think about it. It has to be just engaging enough to pull you away from your own racing thoughts, but not so gripping that you're like, oh my gosh, I have to stay awake to see what happens next. It's a really tricky balance.
You know, this slide really breaks down the difference perfectly. Most sleep stuff, right? It tries to create this bubble of false peace, pretending the world isn't a total mess. This podcast, it does the exact opposite. It basically says, yep, the world is chaotic, your life is a whirlwind, and you know what? That's okay. You can still find rest right here. It's a lullaby for realists, which I think is just brilliant.
All right, next up, creating without a script. So, how is this stuff actually made? I mean, the process itself is just as wild as the idea behind it. How do you generate hours and hours of material that hits that perfect, interesting but not too interesting sweet spot?
Well, the host has this process he calls the Moderator Method. And it's exactly what it sounds like. He basically sits down with zero plan, no script, and just talks. He's kind of like a gentle guide for his own stream of consciousness, trying to make sense of his thoughts as they bubble up.
So you can kind of break it down into 3 steps. First, he just voices whatever is bouncing around in his head. Then, he gently shapes it just enough so that it makes sense to us, the listeners. And in doing that, he lets this really raw, unfiltered part of himself come to the surface.
And here you have it, straight from the source. This is not some clever marketing line. It is a completely improvisational act. It's like he's taking us on this journey into his own mind. And the results are something else entirely. Which leads us perfectly to our next section, stories from the subconscious. So when you let your mind just wander off leash with no map, where does it actually end up?
Well, it turns out it goes to 2 very different places. On one hand, you get these wonderfully bizarre, totally surreal stories. But then, on the other hand, you get these incredibly vulnerable, super honest reflections on life and anxiety. It's this wild mix of the completely fantastic and the deeply familiar.
Okay, just look at this list for a second. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about, and these are all real things he's rambled about. Podcasting horses from the 17th century, a childhood memory about throwing a rubber crocodile, a forgotten pung rat, a revolution led by a rabid king. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, unless, of course, that's your entire method.
But yeah, it's not all saber-toothed giraffes on pogo sticks. The very same unscripted process that cooks up these dreamlike fantasies, it also digs up these profound and sometimes kind of painful human truths. So let's look at that side of the coin now. And that brings us to the ache of being human. This is really where the podcast transforms from just a quirky sleep aid into something much deeper. It becomes the space for exploring all those quiet anxieties that, let's be honest, keep a lot of us up at night.
You'll notice the host often comes back to these kinds of themes. You know that feeling, that sudden gut punch memory of something totally embarrassing you said years ago? Or that nagging fear that you're a danger in traffic just because you made one tiny mistake? Or this really heavy idea of carrying your past failures around like they're printed on your ID badge? These are those universal aches of just being a person.
And all of this kind of points to a bigger philosophical idea the show touches on a lot: the fundamental loneliness of disexisting. I mean, think about it. No matter how close you are to someone, my experience of reality is mine alone and yours is yours. There's this gap between us that can never, ever be fully closed.
And wow, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? We can try to empathize, we can try to imagine, but we can never truly know what it's like to be inside someone else's head. And yet, somehow, we connect anyway. We build entire relationships across that unbridgeable gap.
And that's both a really strange and a really beautiful thought.
Okay, last section, the art of acceptance. So, what are we supposed to do with all this? The chaos, the weird stories, the anxiety, the loneliness? Well, this brings us to the podcast's final and maybe most comforting lesson of all.
Here's the real key. The show isn't trying to fix you. It's not offering solutions or 5-step plans to a better life. Its real job is just to create a space to hold all of it. The good, the bad, the weird, and to just say, yeah, this is all part of it.
And this, right here, this is the mantra. You'll hear this in almost every single episode. It's the core takeaway. It is what it is. What happens, happens, and right now, there's nothing we can do about it. It's so simple, but so powerful. It's not about tomorrow or next year. It's about this very moment, right now, as you're trying to drift off.
And it's so important to understand that this isn't a phrase of defeat. It's not about giving up. It's about finding peace. It's like a strategic retreat for your mind. Just for tonight, you're giving yourself permission to stop fighting the battles, to stop worrying, to stop trying to control everything you can't control, and just rest.
So, that leaves us with this final question for you. In a world that is always spinning, that never stops demanding our attention and our energy, where do you find your calm? Maybe, just maybe, the greatest art of all is simply learning how to let go.